The Cairo Museum is one of the greatest treasure houses in the world. And today I want to tell you the story of the missing mummy. Just a day or two ago, I had the privilege of going through the Cairo Museum again and looking at some of the fantastic wealth that is found in this great museum. There you have all the treasures of the pharaohs. There you can see the golden death mask of Pharaoh, God King Tutankhamun. When I look at it, it still just takes my breath away. It's so magnificent. Then as you wander around there, you see the shrines made covered with gold. And some of those shrines are so big you could put a Cadillac car inside them. And then as you wander around other parts of the museum, you see the great monuments of Akhenaten and all of the great pharaohs, including Pharaoh Queen Hatshepsut. And as you see this, you understand a little bit of the wealth and the power of the ancient Egyptian nation. It truly was a remarkable kingdom, and it ruled the world for thousands and thousands of years. Just a day or two ago, I had the privilege of going into the royal mummy room, and there I saw with my own eyes some of the greatest men that this world has ever seen. I saw there a great pharaoh whose name is Second-in-Ray. Now the Bible tells us how Joseph lived and how Joseph became the prime minister down in the land of Egypt. And we believe that Joseph became the prime minister in the days of the Hyksos kings. Now these were foreign kings. But then there came an Egyptian king, an Egyptian pharaoh, and he made war against the Hyksos and he finally drove them out. And he ushered in a new time of prosperity for the Egyptians. And that king was Second-in-Ray. And you can actually see on his skull how he was killed in his terrible struggle against these foreign overlords. Second-in-Ray started a new dynasty. He started a dynasty that included such great kings as Kamose and Ahmose and Thutmose and Pharaoh Queen Hatshepsut. And these were some of the most powerful, some of the most illustrious people that this world has ever seen. Now some time ago, not just 2 days ago, but some time ago, when I was in the Cairo Museum, I actually gazed into the face of Thutmose III. He's a person I find quite fascinating. I'll tell you why. By comparing the chronologies of the Bible with the chronologies of the ancient Egyptians, we think we can work out when the Exodus took place. Now, the Exodus is when the children of Israel left the land of Egypt, went through the Red Sea on their way into the land of Palestine. It appears from the most recent research that the Exodus took place March 17, 1450 BC. And that was the very day when Thutmose III died. And therefore, we believe that there is strong evidence that Thutmose III was the actual pharaoh who stood up before Moses and said, "I don't know Jehovah. I don't know you, Moses. I don't know these slaves. These slaves are mine. I don't know them as people. I only know them as animals. And I'm not going to let these Hebrew slaves go." He was the man who stood up against the God of heaven. He was a powerful king. I've had the privilege of standing and looking right into his face. What an amazing experience. I looked down into his face and I thought, you don't have a lot to say today, Thutmose. You had a lot to say to Moses, but you don't have a lot to say today. You are the man who defied the living God. Just 2 days ago, when I was in the royal mummy room, I saw the great pharaoh, Ramesses the Great. He was a great character. You can actually see the literal person. There he is. This is not a make-believe. This is the actual pharaoh. Did you know this? This is quite an interesting story, that recently the mummy developed a fungus, the mummy of Ramesses the Great, and they had to fly the mummy to Paris to have the mummy treated so that the fungus could be removed. And when Ramesses came to the airport, they called out the guard. They gave him a 21-gun salute, and they treated him like a visiting monarch, which of course he really was. And so here in the Royal Mummy Room, you have some of the greatest people that this world has ever seen. But there's one person who is missing, and I call him the missing mummy. Would you like to know who he is, this missing mummy? This man who could have been the king. The Bible indicates that Moses could have been the Pharaoh. The Bible tells us that Moses was placed in a little basket, and his mother let the basket go on the River Nile because the Pharaoh had said that every male child had to be put to death. And there was a little princess who went down to the River Nile to bathe, and she heard the sound of a baby crying. And she opened up the little basket, and she saw this little baby there, and she called him Moses, an Egyptian name. It means born of. We believe that that woman was a princess whose name was Hatshepsut. She became the most powerful woman in the history of the ancient Egyptians, even more powerful than Cleopatra. Now let me get back to the story. The Bible tells us that Moses was trained to be the Pharaoh. He became a mighty philosopher, a mighty general, and he was going to be a mighty king. He was going to be the Pharaoh. But to become the Pharaoh, he had to become a pagan sun worshiper. In fact, he had to believe that he himself was the incarnation of the sun god. He had to give up his faith in the true God. And the Bible tells us that Moses turned his back on the gods of Egypt. He turned his back on the wealth of Egypt, and he chose to be a follower of the true God. Moses, if he had not made the right choice, my friend, would have been there 2 days ago and today in the Cairo Museum. And the attendant would have said, here is Tut Moses, here is Ram Moses, and here is the Moses of the Bible. Look at him, he's a mummy. But I've got news for you today. Moses is not in the Cairo Museum. Moses is in heaven. Moses is home in glory. He's there because he made the right choice. Tut Moses is in the Cairo Museum because he made the wrong choice. But Moses, the man of God, is in the kingdom of God. He's in heaven because he made the right choice. Moses is the missing mummy.